Hello, hello, hello. Okay, I guess I'm in style. So, let's do this. What is really going on? That is the name of this new series. And I have to say, I was very, very, very disgusted at Google that had this transgender week. You know, when I see what Google is promoting, so I'm going to give you all of the things that I've seen from them. Number one, 100, I think was some kind of 100th centenary something in America. So their line was 100 years of racism. So that is a disgusting, disgusting thing to say. America is an amazing country. I've lived in Africa. So what is racism? Racism is when you take a group of people and you say they are all alike. Now, there's something called reverse racism, and that's not white against black, but it's black against white. And most blacks are not racists. However, there is a delusional bunch, Obama being one of them, that actually feel that they are gods and that they can tell everyone what to do. And one of the ways they manipulate is exactly like Hitler did, say we're the gods, the other people are evil. And so on one hand they basically spread racism amongst the black community to hate whites. And it's a massive problem. It's going on a massive scale. And so a lot of the naive left have bought into this idea. See it on the movies. I don't want to go too deeply into it. Anybody that has any sense can see it. And this is a disgusting discrimination because, as Martin Luther King said, that what matters is the content of the heart, not the color of the skin. So if the heart is filled with love, then whether you're black or white, you're a good person. And if what you're doing is demeaning other people, whether you're demeaning blacks or you're demeaning whites as a group, then you are a disgusting racist. And that's a very important thing to understand. The second thing that Google has promoted, and again, it's a bizarre insanity, is this whole idea of, kind of transgender, this false, in 1984 by George Orwell, he said that the way governments, but I guess it can be even people who think they're governments, influence is they mess up the language. So they pretend a dog is a cat, and if people can't think straight, then they believe it. And so this kind of thing where perverted sexual desires, which, as one lady who's a psychiatrist from the Mayo Clinic, so that's from the best, said you can just as much make someone a transgender through a sex operation as you can tell somebody who thinks they're basically, a lot of anorexics think they're fat. So if you do liposuction, you're going to heal them. It's a mental disease, and anybody that has any sense can tell the difference between a dog and a cat. And a man and a woman are different, not only biologically, but they're different in their brain. So until somebody can create some kind of, literally, it's a different brain. And so that different brain creates different emotions. And of course, on a more spiritual level, it's because we have different souls, and the different brains are actually good things because men excel in certain areas and women excel in certain areas. And therefore, together, they create families. Together, it is a great thing. And this kind of disgusting, perverted attitudes are nothing but a way of destroying humanity. And that's why Russia put decades, if not generations, into promoting all over the world, even though in themselves they go against it. But they wanted to destroy Western civilization. That's what communism, they thought they had another ideal, and Western civilization was against them. So they promoted, as one of the defectors, a Russian spy who defected, and he said this, you can look it up on YouTube, it's a video from the 1970s, he came to America and he said in the 1970s exactly what's happening today. And it's all about finding the elements of society. He said it's like what do they call it? Judo. So what happens in judo is you use the other person's strength against themselves. So the guy's throwing a punch, you allow him to fall. The same thing is certain elements of society are sick, and therefore they just help those elements along. And obviously those elements that are self-destructive, because that's what gay is. I mean, anybody who's gay is not going to live more than a generation. And anything that's godly is eternal. It's going to last forever. The miracle of birth is a continuous thing. So we're not condemning people for having a problem, but we are saying that the reason that this has become acceptable is because Russia, and you could read the most authoritative book is called Disinformation by a former head of the KGB of Romania who defected to the US, and he wrote a book on the whole art of disinformation. That's one of the major things that they were into. And this is why this entire cult of trying to celebrate this is basically, it's been brought out, and I don't want to go too deeply how the whole system works, but it's an exact science that works. And now we have children. I'll just give an example here in the community. A guy told me that his, I don't know if it was his niece or a cousin, a 13-year-old blind girl, right? So she thinks that she's a boy, and she jumps off somewhere to commit suicide. So I thought to myself, how does a blind girl even have such a crazy idea in her head? And the answer is that we have a generation of teachers, a guy who went recently to university to study to be a teacher. The main thing that they're teaching them is this garbage that, oh, you can choose what you want. So this is a disgusting, disgusting, self-destructive mechanism, which is exactly what Russia wanted. And so I'm just speaking, I'm not even going into all the other crazy issues. I'm just speaking exactly what I saw from Google. And so Google should be deeply, deeply ashamed of itself, because without America, just like my ancestors who came to America and gave us safe haven, so the founders of Google were Russian Jews, and if they wanted to stay in Russia without oppression, and they'd be lucky to be able to lift their head above the water to say anything. And so the bottom line is that we have to basically, for all intensive purposes today, you have to only put yourself into the three categories God speaks about, which is Torah, study of Torah, avodah, prayer, and good deeds. And one has to be a soldier of the Rebbe, doing the work of spreading Judaism, spreading light nonstop. Because the moment you stop shining light is the moment when there is a lot of darkness, it starts to penetrate.